Hey friends, welcome to Sabbath School Daily, where we have been studying from this lesson right here, God's Mission, My Mission. This week we're studying from lesson number 1, which has the title, God's Mission to Us, part 1, and today is Thursday's lesson, which has the title, The God Who Will Come Back for Us. I'm so excited about this quarter's lesson because we're talking about the heart of the matter. If we didn't believe that God is a missionary God, that He's coming back to restore everything that was lost in the very beginning, well, what would be the point of anything then? And so you see that ultimately, this God who is a missionary, this God who is reaching out, who wants to be with us, He has to be also the God, as the title says, who will come back for us. You know, in all of my Bible studies, I always, when I get to this point, when I get to this subject, I always say that this is the greatest promise, the most important promise in the entire Bible. Without this promise, everything else kind of doesn't make sense. It falls away. And the promise is that which appears in John chapter 14, verse 1 through 3. Look at what verse 3 says. It says, I will come back and take you to be with me, that where I am, you may be also. Do you see? He wants to be with us, and so He is coming back. In the first two verses where He says, don't be troubled. Do not let your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe in me. What He's saying is, don't doubt what I'm telling you. I'm not just saying this for the sake of saying words or just promising this for good optics. God doesn't work that way. He is saying something that is coming from the depths of His heart. He wants to have us back home. And so this chapter right here, this verse, it's the greatest promise that you will find in the Bible out of hundreds of promises, out of dozens of specific categories of promise. This one is the promise that all others converge, because if He were not coming back, then nothing would make sense. Nothing would truly be worthwhile. The fact that He longs to be with us and that He's coming back to take us back with Him, that is the greatest hope of Christians. And that's why that hope is in the very name of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. It's the church that believes in the advent of Jesus Christ. Look at what Ellen White says in the book, Desired of Ages, page 26. The work of redemption will be complete. In the place where sin abounded, God's grace much more abounds. The earth itself, the very field that Satan claims as his, is to be not only ransomed, but exalted. Here, where the Son of God tabernacled in humanity, where the King of glory lived and suffered and died, here, where He shall make all things new, the tabernacle of God shall be with men. And through endless ages, as the redeemed walk in the light of the Lord, they will praise Him for His unspeakable gift. Emmanuel, God with us. Here, the lesson tells us that we find the most beautiful picture, the most beautiful painting of redemption. The God of the mission will finally fulfill His desire to be with His children eternally. What a tremendous privilege to be a part of this reality. My friends, look, my life revolves around this hope. My everyday as a pastor has to do with reaching the lost, with trying to be the best instrument I can be to reaching people, to bring peace, to bring comfort, to bring hope, to be an extension of the arms and feet and hands of Jesus Christ. And I truly feel that that should be the mission of all of us. That is something that I have given myself to, and I invite you to live that reality as well, because I promise you there is tremendous joy in giving your life, in living day by day for that very reality. Now, we're never perfect. I am definitely not a perfect person, a perfect example of anything. But I truly believe that God speaks through the imperfect things. The Bible tells us that He uses the weak things of the world, the insane things of the world, to put to shame that which is strong and smart and intelligent. And that's where I kind of find a little bit of hope, because I know myself. I know that I'm not the biggest, the best, but I try, and I feel that the desire here is for God to use those who want to try, those who want to give their best, that want to do a little bit of what they can do. After all, God isn't limited by our great limitations. God isn't really helped by our great talents. What God wants is our availability. So it's not our disabilities or our abilities, but our availability. Make yourself available. This quarter is introducing something that I really love to see. They're called the weekly challenges. Look at what the lesson says. Throughout this quarter, you will be invited to engage intentionally in God's mission. This will be an opportunity to see and experience the God of mission at work in your life. Take advantage of this moment for personal reflection and be ready to share what you have learned with your class on a weekly basis. Additionally, the Challenge Up will encourage you to increase your involvement in God's mission. One thing that I hope you notice that I talk about a lot is when I'm finishing the lesson, I tell you to look up the questions, look up the verses. What does that mean? Well, every quarterly has several things for you to do, right? So, or every day of the lesson, really, there are, places for you to read, and then you'll have the verses. Sometimes there will be questions for you to answer, and it will give you some lines, right? So, for example, the first one here is, in what ways is it connected with the end time message found in the scriptures? And it's referring to John chapter 14, 1 through 3. That's the questions that I want you to look up. That's what I want you to write down, because these things will educate you, will cement that information, that knowledge in your mind. And trust me, God, He brings that back when you least expect it. But more than that, in the bottom of each lesson, there's a part where you can kind of apply it in your own life. So as you look over here, the challenge, for example, it says, pray every day for the coming week for God to open your heart and to be part of His mission. And then here it has Challenge Up, which is learn the name of someone in your life and that you don't already know. A neighbor, a coworker, shopkeeper, bus driver, janitor. Begin praying for him or her each day. Let me give you a testimony. At the end of each of my Bible studies with someone, when we're on lesson 27, it has to do with the next step. What comes after we're done our Bible studies? After all, no one really graduates from their life with Christ. We just grow. And so I try to challenge them to go from being just disciples to becoming disciplers. Right? Looking for new people to introduce God to. And so I finished a Bible study quite recently with a good friend of mine, and he got baptized, right? And now he's kind of thinking or questioning, what should I do next? What happens next? And at the end of these Bible studies, I get a sheet of paper and I ask these people to that I study the Bible with to divide the paper into 4 quadrants, 4 parts. And so, a horizontal line, a vertical line, so 4 different parts. And in the first one, to write down the name of close family members. On the second one, to write down the name of close friends. On the third quadrant, on the third portion, to write down the name of people that they know, maybe at work or at school. And then in the fourth quadrant, to write down the names, or to write down just, sometimes you don't know their names, but people that you meet at the grocery store, bank, clerk or teller, or, kind of people like that. People that are not close to you at all, but you sometimes encounter them, and start praying for them. And so this one friend of mine, he started doing that, and he took it seriously. He wrote it down. He called it the square 4 prayer. And so I'm going to start calling it that, the square 4 prayer, the prayer 4 square. I have to ask him how he kind of worded it, but he has a knack at wording things like that. And recently he went out on a weekend trip with some childhood friends of his who are completely unchurched. Not religious, and, they were there, and some of his friends were drinking and just doing things that people regularly do. And he was not, right? He came to Christ and he set these things aside. And so some of them had come to his baptism. And at the last day, they started asking him about religion and asking questions. And to him, that's kind of new, because he was the one that would kind of mock that reality in his past life. He was not very religious. And so he started answering the questions as best he could. And soon enough, these few friends of his that, weren't particularly religious or churched, they're now asking him for Bible studies. And so my friend called me, and he was super excited, because that's what God is doing in his life. The Lord is introducing people to him that he can now bring to Christ. And so he has no idea how he's going to do it, and we're going through it and talking about it, but just seeing his joy at seeing God open that door for him, it's one of the most beautiful things that I've seen, that I've heard. And I promise you, friends, there is nothing more beautiful, there is nothing more powerful than seeing God reach people through us, through you, through me, in your own life. There's nothing greater than that. And so I encourage you, do the prayer 4 square. Divide a piece of paper into 4 parts. Put down the names of family members, of friends, of acquaintances, and people that you just randomly meet, and start praying for them. This can be a quarter of extraordinary power, of extraordinary transformation for you and for the people around you, if you allow God to work through you. Pray for people. Please study your lesson. This is an incredible lesson. I'm super excited about it. Write down the answers to the questions. Think about the questions that are being proposed. Think about the verses, about the ideas that you find here, and I'm sure that God will encourage you with this. Please also remember, I'd love to interact with you. Write down comments, write down questions. If there's anything that you want clarified, I'd love to either write down and comment down below and answer, or I'd love to make a video about it, and that would be great. Please remember to like, to share, to subscribe to our videos. We release one every day, and I hope to see you again here tomorrow for another Sabbath School Daily.